Upset meter time. What are the rules of upset meter, Christopher?
Basically, we're looking for teams or games that are 10-point spreads that might be worth watching. Or maybe you're going to tune in the second half and be like, wow, I didn't realize this team has a chance to lose this game. And obviously, we've got four favorites here on the board. It's SMU, it's Penn State, South Carolina, and Washington State, respectively. We'll break down each of those games real quick and tell us how we're feeling. If these fan bases should be worried, or if maybe they can take the week off and get some raking some leaves on Saturday if you do so have to do so.
Yes. Spoiler alert there, though. I don't think any of these teams should be taking a breather. Now, okay, you're probably looking at this right now, and you're probably saying, Penn State, that line's 8.5. Well, it opened at like 12. All right. And when we made our decision to do upset meter, we knew we were going to talk about that game. Hence the line drop.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
I think that's even more so the reason for us to talk about this game because we're not
Yeah.
the only ones to think, hey, maybe this line's pretty smelly. Maybe Penn State, who's been struggled last week with an Indiana team that's awful, maybe they struggle with Maryland on the road here.
Yeah. So, but the first game we'll talk about, let's talk about SMU. On the road, traveling to Rice. SMU. People are talking about SMU, right? They're probably currently the favorite to win the American, aside from Tulane. Uh, who, by the way, they don't play this year. Tulane and SMU do not play. And SMU's last year in the American before they moved to the ACC. Games that they have won: Louisiana Tech, Prairie View, Charlotte, East Carolina, Temple, Tulsa. This Rice win, if they win and beat Rice, that will be their best win of the entire season up until this point.
Yep.
So I know people are talking about this SMU defense being really awesome. Well, TCU put up 34, right? I mean, this Rice offense is no slouch. JT Daniels, little Luke McCaffrey. Uh, I, I don't know. I think that this is a game where they could slip up. They're 12-point favorites right now. I put this one in the sweating category. I really do. I think like SMU, like this is a giant, not a look ahead to North Texas, but just look ahead to they're already looking at the conference championship. They're already thinking about that Memphis game right on November 18th. They're already thinking about, they already have coaches scouting Tulane, right? And now they're not paying coaches necessarily to go scout them at other teams' games.
Oh, come on.
They're already looking at film though. I can guarantee it. I think this is sweating.
I agree. I think JT Daniels is not to be trifled with. We obviously, if you're a college football fan, you know who he is. You know the career he has had. It's gonna be good to see him play in a pretty meaningful game in the American there that they can really win. They have a real chance to win that football game. Should have beaten
Yeah.
Tulane last week. Could have beaten Tulane last week. I'll say that. Could have beaten Tulane last week. Obviously,
Should have beaten UConn.
oh yeah, South Florida, whatever. But also, Preston Stone is playing good football. He's been playing good football. High recruit, if you remember him from recruiting days.
Sure. And he might have another good
SMU
game.
landed him.
He might have another good game.
But
But
JT Daniels, Luke
JT Daniels.
McCaffrey.
Yeah. So we're definitely putting this one in sweating. If you listen on Spotify, the levels are cold, mild, sweating, steaming, and piping. We're gonna put this one
It's
in
not
sweating.
it's not too far a trip from Dallas to Houston though. But it's on the road.
No,
It's on the road.
it's on the road. It is. I actually visited that stadium. It's not big, but I kind of like the aesthetic of it a little bit. I like the aesthetic of it. It's like entirely just like concrete, and their concessions are just like there. They're just unlocked, right? So you just walk in the doors and just go there, which is pretty hilarious. Um, no security whatsoever there. Next game, Penn State. Who are they playing? Maryland. We talked about it. What that line opened at like 11. It's now dipped down to 8.5. Uh, honestly though, compared to the rest of these games, I feel better about Penn State just because of how terrible Maryland's been playing and how good that Penn State defense is and how prone to turnover Talia is when he plays a good defense.
It's been weird. This Maryland team, it's frustrating. It had to be frustrating. 5-0. And we talked about them. I didn't put them on fraud alert necessarily because they were 5-0, whatever, but like I thought they would struggle on the back half of their schedule. I did not think they would lose the two Big Ten West
The
games they had back to back, Illinois
the
and
two
Northwestern.
Illinois teams. Yikes.
Since the halftime of that Ohio State game, which they were right there with, right? They have been really bad. They've played bad football.
Yeah, the Illinois
And
teams in Big Ten play have 3 wins combined, and 2 of those wins are against Maryland.
one of them's Minnesota.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. But yeah, sorry to interrupt you there.
No, you're good. I think Penn State comes home. They get right against Maryland. Maryland's a team. Some people like throw around the term "get right," right? Like you're not gonna get right against Utah. You're not gonna get right against, Ohio State or get right against, like really well coached teams. And not that Maryland's not well coached. I've given Mike Locksley plenty of praise, but Penn State has a significant talent advantage against Maryland. All right, this is the game where you unleash Drew Allar. You try to get that running game going with the two-headed monsters in the backfield. You look for an alpha to come out of your wide receiver room, and you look for your offensive line to actually start road grading people. That O line that was so hyped up with Olu and all his people up front, where has it been? In this game, they show out. The defense comes to play like they always have. They played well. The defense. Now, Indiana was not a great showing. Indiana's awful, and Penn State at home had a real chance to lose that football game. Regardless, though, I think they get it right. I think this is your classic of let's return back to the mean of Penn State. Penn State's floor is still pretty high. They're still a good football team. And I think moving below 10 is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. I think sports books are probably licking their chops right now. Um, you know.
All right, let's talk about the next team, the Gamecocks, playing against the Gamecocks. South Carolina at home against Jacksonville State. 15.5 is the line. Kind of bounce back and forth, 15.5, 14.5. Regardless, it's 2 touchdowns, right? Not a key number. I think this is mild / sweating. I would put it in between there, right?
Real quick, not to interrupt you. If you're new to college football, or if you're, you've checked out, you're not a big Conference USA fan, like Jacksonville State, you're gonna look at this game on ESPN. Oh, look at it, they're 7-2, whatever. South Carolina's 2-6. Jacksonville State's 7-2 in the FCS. No, they're an FCS team, FBS team now. They're playing in the FBS. They've played some good football. I don't know how they're 7-2, but they've played some really good football. They beat some teams. Yeah, this is a little Rich Rodriguez, if you remember him, right?
Oh,
Old
yeah.
coach of Michigan and West Virginia. He's down there at Jacksonville State. Sorry to interrupt. You can continue.
Yeah, I mean, Zion Webb has been the guy the last couple weeks for Jacksonville State with his plays on the ground. Logan Smothers occasionally comes in. Logan Smothers pretty kind of stinks from watching him. I don't know how they won that Sam Houston game when I watched that game. It was an electric cover though. I think for some reason I feel better about Penn State though than I feel about South Carolina, despite the lines being, that much different. I think South Carolina has. I think Spencer Rattler will elevate. Like Spencer Rattler himself, right, should win this football game, right? Like he doesn't need much. He doesn't need much help, right? Like he's just a different level of player. Nick Harbor, I get it that they're a little bit injured in that wide receiver room. They're injured in general, offensive line. I mean, they're kind of a mess right now. That's what gives Jacksonville State a chance, right? Is that this team that's on the rise, excited to be playing against a Power 5 school, which, by the way, Jacksonville State is no stranger to beating Power 5 teams. If you remember, they beat Florida State in the last play of the game a few years back. So they're no stranger to this. So I put this one in mild. I think I put this one in mild.
I would too. I think this is Jacksonville State when they have played two like legit teams, Coastal Carolina and Libertyville. They got pretty badly outplayed, and even in some of their wins, Jacksonville State has not looked good. And credit to Rich Rod, credit to that staff and those players for coming out and playing hard. But I will give some credit here to Jacksonville State. I think Malik Jackson, right? He's the best running back on both these rosters. He is a legit big time college football player. And if he has some success against South Carolina, I think they can make this interesting. And then when they go fast, they go really, really fast. If you haven't watched Jacksonville State, they're really fun to watch. If you have nothing to do on like your Wednesdays during the week or Thursdays, like
The weekday
watch Jacksonville
CUSA.
State. You gotta watch them play. Yeah, this is awesome for Jacksonville State to go out and get some exposure against South Carolina. You mentioned it though. South Carolina just should win this football game. Spencer Rattler is really, really good. He's obviously the best player on the field. Nick Harbor, freak. They don't have anybody that can cover him. I do think there are real flaws on this South Carolina team. It's a reason why they're 2-6 on the year and have just been awful in conference play. I don't know. I'm yeah, I would be. I'm not worried because I think Jacksonville State's not great, and like teams that can upset teams, like some pretty darn good teams. I think this USA is just not a very good conference. And I think South Carolina should get it done at home. But it is really interesting. I'm very excited to watch this game, to catch some parts of it, and to see if Jacksonville State can hang. Because with playing that fast tempo offense, sometimes it can come back to bite you. You know, where you try and then you're just going quick 3 and outs or quick 4 and outs, and South Carolina's getting the ball in good field position. At the same time, you could also it's very hit or miss. It's very, go big, go home, because you get a defense reeling that's struggled all year, and you can do some damage with them, with big hitters, quick slashers, and all that stuff.
Yeah. So you'd agree that this is mild,
Yeah,
maybe like in between mild and sweating, kind of. I don't know. I think this is
yeah.
pretty mild.
Mm-hmm.
The last team that we're gonna talk about, your boys, the Washington State Cougars. They play a team in California. And this team in California is not a very good team. Their over on the win total on the year is 2.5. I think they have a legit chance to screw me over when I took under 2.5. I think they have a legit chance to screw me over and mess around and win this game in Pullman.
Yeah. Washington State has been my boys all year. I've struggled to pick against them in games. I took their over on the year, and it looked great. They started 4-0, and they've gone a 4-game skid since that point. They're sitting at 4-4, 1-4 in Pac-12 play. You got to get right here. You got to get right here at home. Does that happen? I really don't know. I think Stanford has just given teams just such a struggle. Right, the line's pretty high. Right, I believe it's down to 13. Okay, it's 13, but regardless, I just think Stanford gets. Now they might not win. Stanford might not win, but they could put them on serious sweat territory when it comes to the fourth quarter, where Cam Ward has to make a fantastic play to keep a drive extended or whatever, so they go down and win the football game.
Yeah,
I'm
I think
gonna
this
root
is
for
almost.
Washington State,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's
Well,
gonna be
me too. Me too.
yeah, we can both agree on that. But Stanford, man, Troy Taylor and the boys, they're playing tough football, and sometimes that's all it takes. Eventually, the tides turn. Eventually, you saw in the Colorado game, you stuck with it. You ended up coming back in that game and getting a win there in conference play. That could happen again today. That's a real possibility of that happening again this week.
Yeah, in this stretch, right, you play Stanford, then Cal, then Colorado. You got to find a way to win those 3 games. You got to, because then you play Washington on the road. A 7-5 season sounds a lot better than 6-6 or 5-7.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they need to find a way to win this game and Cal and Colorado. So I think they can. I don't know what's going on over there. I don't. I did not watch the Arizona State game when they played each other. I should probably go back and watch that game. I'm very confused as to how they lost that game. I
They
understand
can't run
Oregon's a
the
really good
ball.
team.
They can't run the ball. I think
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. And you
Well,
can't when you
it's a
can't run
Ben
the ball,
Arbuckle special.
It's hard to win football games when you can't run the ball.
Yeah. Oh man, what are they averaging right now? They're averaging 3 yards a carry on offense, giving up 5.
Yeah, well, I mean they had like 43 rushing yards with running backs last week.
Yeah.
Cam Ward played
So
fantastic.
yeah, I
And
put this one at least sweating, almost steaming. It's like right. It might be steaming. This one conference game. I know it's at home. They're struggling in conference. This is a great get right spot for them too, but it's also potential collapse spot.
yeah, exactly. The wheels could really fall off.
So I like putting that there. So to recap, we got Penn State, mild, lower spectrum of mild, right? South Carolina, also mild. You could argue, I think sweating, cold. I think I could hear arguments either way. SMU, I playing Rice on the road, I think is definitely sweating, if not high mild. And Washington State, I think, is at least sweating right there, steaming, I think. Steaming. So yeah, thank you guys for checking out our upset meter. So what do we got next? Well, we got Dawson's Diner next. Where's Dawson's Diner? Best bets on the season, 22 and 25. Not great. But again, these lines have moved. I've gotten value every single week, right? I think we're falling on the wrong side of variance. I think this turns